This is Oris from oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those they love. And check it out. Be sure to subscribe, share, and review. In the meantime, this is 4th of July. That's right, 4th of July. And one of the things that we like to do on 4th of July is to read the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, I know we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna have a few drinks, have something to eat, maybe barbecue. No, we don't have barbecue. We're not gonna barbecue. But we're gonna be relaxing, not doing very much of anything today. But what I'm gonna tell you is that one of the things that we do is read the Declaration of Independence, which I have it right here in my hands. And the reason for that is that that's what the whole day is about. Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that when these guys signed this Declaration of Independence, they basically put it all on the line. They put their houses, everything they own, and their lives on the line. And so it's an important document. And it's the foundation of the United States. And I don't care about the 1619 Project and all that pseudo history that's in there that's been debunked and all that stuff. No. And I get it. We're not perfect. And guess what? You're not perfect and I'm not perfect. Doesn't matter. What matters is that this is the best place in the world to be. This is the greatest country in the world. And that's why people want to come here, legally and illegally. They want to come here because this is the greatest country in the world. And what started it all is this Declaration of Independence, which I'm going to encourage you to read out loud with your family, with your friends, and just take a few minutes. It's not going to take that long. There'll be plenty of time to have that extra drink, to have that extra hot dog, to have that extra hamburger, whatever, ice cream, whatever you're doing. So here it goes. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind required that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organize its powers in such a form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of which they are accustomed to. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having a direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to a candid world. These are the facts. He has refused to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing his manly firmness, his invasions on the rights of people. He has refused for a long time after such resolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining, in the meantime, exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payment for their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He is affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civilian power. He has combined with others to subject us to his jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English law in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He's abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at the same time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely parallel in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens to take captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioner of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrection amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages who know to rule is warfare, is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting intentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We've reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We've appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to our voice of justice and contiguity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which announces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We therefore, representatives of the United States of America and General Congress, assembled appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do it in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are of right and ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British crown, and that all political connections between them and the state of Great Britain is ought and to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may right do. and for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Folks, just take a few moments and do that. Don't, like I said, there's plenty of time to do this. No big deal. Just a few minutes. But this is the point of the 4th of July, the Declaration of Independence. And take the time to read this out loud with your friends and family. I encourage you to do that. Until later, take care. God bless America. God save America. We certainly need a lot of prayer these days.